And good afternoon. It is 3:31 p.m. here on Tuesday, October 13th. Just a reminder, today is the deadline. You have 29 minutes to get your mail ballot application to your local board of canvassers if you want a mail ballot, if you already did not submit that. And as a reminder, tomorrow starts the fun where you could vote early in person at your local city and town hall. And just to keep me on my toes and make sure that I did not miss anything, What's Up Noop's Frank Prosnich joins me. And Frank, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you, Ryan?
It's been a while.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Um,
all right.
Deadline is today for mail ballot applications. Drop it off at the box at your local board of canvassers. Early voting starts tomorrow. It's game time.
Yep,
And,
it is game time. Weird
and
stuff around the country. You know what was it? Did you see in California where the Republican Party, or I don't know if the Republican Party, Republicans put out some bogus drop boxes for mail ballots?
I did not see that,
Yeah.
but luckily that's not happening here. The only thing I've seen today is this screen and the wonderful candidates from Middletown Town Council as well as Newport School Committee. And we are making our way through the list. There are 18 candidates running for Middletown Town Council. We got through a bunch of them today, as well as a bunch of school committee candidates. And we'll get to more of them tomorrow as well as Thursday as I continue to line up. But joining us today is Daniel Titus, and Dan joins us now. And Daniel, nice to see you.
Good seeing you guys. Frank, Ryan, how are you?
Good.
How are you?
And fancy meeting you here.
Yeah.
Daniel, for those that do not know who you are wondering more about you, give us a little bit of background information on who Daniel Titus is.
Well, I am a local Middletowner. I've been living in Middletown about 12 years over on Paradise Ave. Before that, I had uncles, aunts. My grandmother lived in Middletown over at Marshall Village. So we've had long, deep roots in Middletown. My family has been here for 150 years anyways in the area. Besides that, I work in IT over at Salve Regina. I also work as a deputy zoning officer for the city of Newport, dealing with nuisance problems, noise issues. Keep busy all around. Spend a lot of my time volunteering on different committees and boards around the city. Try to give back to the community that has given us so much.
And our work crosses paths a little way. For full disclosure, to put this out there, Fort Adams Trust, we both have a special place in our heart for Fort Adams.
Yes, we do. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to see you much because we've been remote.
That's it. So, Frank, why don't you take it away here, man?
Your motivation for running?
Well, I'll tell you, it started about 4 years ago. I ran, then I was offered a non-paid position at Clooney School where my son was. So I took that instead to help him go through school. But my motivation comes to giving back. I'm very active in lots of different organizations, committees around town. And I think it's our civic duty to do something, anything, no matter what it is. It's that's, by the way, normal for me. My phone was always ringing.
I was almost going to answer it.
But yeah, so Frank, that's really what it is. I think that I can offer something to the town. I love the town. It's a beautiful place to live, a great place to raise a family, and I want to keep it that way. I want people to have the experience that my son has had, that we have had, and make it a really nice place to raise a family.
Dan, was there anything that made you answer the call this year and said that this is the year that I should run?
Well, my son's in high school now. He is a junior. We've talked about it for the last 2 years about running. I'd like him to see this civic engagement. And I just figured this would be a good year while he's still in high school so he can see this is what you do, when you, quote, grow up. You do take positions and you volunteer for positions and you put in the hours. If I knew there were going to be 18 people, like you said in the beginning, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting race. And by the way, I'm very happy there's 18 people. I think that's great. It shows that people are interested. I wish there were more. I wish there were 25 people.
Daniel, what do you see as the top issues?
Well, I think the top issues, at least for me, education, of course, is going to be one of those big ballot questions. Whether you're in Newport or Middletown, uh, education and whether we combine school districts is going to be big, or at least talk about this. But I actually think economics is going to be a huge issue, and it should be a huge issue. We cannot survive as a town if we cannot keep our businesses open year round. How do we keep families here? How do we keep people supporting our businesses? And we don't do it by having a transient community, a community that's here for, a week at a time. We do it by building a fabric so people can actually go out and visit these stores and shops and restaurants all throughout Middletown. So that's going to be the big issue, I think, is economics.
And I think that is a big issue for every community here in Rhode Island. Of course, this election in Middletown and Newport has come down to, unfortunately or fortunately, where people fall on education, the future of education in each community. Give us some background. Obviously, you're not part of this Newport school bond vote, but where do you fall on regionalization? Where do you fall on Middletown High School and Middletown education? How do we fix and how do we improve? Not that things need to be fixed necessarily. Yeah. How do we improve education?
I think you're right, Ryan. It's how do we improve this? How do we give these students, our kids, this is a future generation. How do we give them the best we can give them, preparing them to be not only citizens, but eventually taxpayers, and keeping these people here, keeping these kids here when they become adults. And it is a big issue, and it spans multiple towns and cities here. And someday it may even include Portsmouth, who knows? But where do I stand? I'm an educator. I love school. I've worked in higher ed. I have many degrees. I like it. I think it's a great thing to learn all these great new things. So I think we need to look at it. I think we need to look closely at this. Can we give students a better education at a better price, and let these students have teaching experiences that will last them a lifetime? I had wonderful teachers. I went to Rogers, and I had great teachers at Rogers. I loved my teachers at Rogers. My son likes his teachers at Middletown, although he's actually virtual this year too, sadly. So I think we have the ability now to leverage an opportunity between two different municipalities in providing a better education, I assume at a lower price, but that needs to be looked at. I mean, it'd be nice if there was a silver lining. There is no silver bullet lining, but we'll see. So I think we definitely need to look at it. Personal opinions, I think we definitely have to look at it, not today, not tomorrow, but like last week.
How does that fit in when Newport's voting this year on a bond issue to build a new school? If it passes, how do you move from there to unification?
Well, that's a good question. I think Newport is doing what they think is best for them, and they should. They need to work through that. What does that mean for Middletown and Newport too? In the end, I don't know. I guess we'll see once the ballots close. And I think historically, Rhode Islanders have been very generous with ballots involving money, extremely generous. We'll see what the state does, when it comes to funding and things like that.
Although reality is that there are school districts like in Westerly where school bond issues have been defeated. So it's not a slam dunk.
It's not a slam dunk. And I think schools, for some interesting reason, always seem to be this like lightning rod of for and against. It's most interesting because we're dealing with the part of society you really want to put that investment into. All these problems we see in society, not all of them, but a lot of them comes down to things like education, socioeconomics, let's move them beyond, get them a good job. Let's train them to do something. So it's interesting that, maybe it's appropriate that we fight over it. We'll see where that lands.
We mentioned education. We mentioned economy. What other priorities do you see out there, or are you hearing from voters and your fellow neighbors and residents that are priorities in Middletown?
Well, I think in Middletown, the priorities have to do with keeping this way of life. People I have to talk to. We're kind of this bucolic little area. We're not Newport. We're not a big city full of all this great nightlife, and we're not the suburbs like Portsmouth. We're kind of this great in between, the middle. You can live in Middletown and have all of it. I think that's really what people are saying. How do we keep Middletown at a reasonable rate? And that's important. I think, frankly, they've done really well at keeping taxes fairly reasonable. I mean, it's obviously cheaper tax-wise to live in Newport. But I think overall they've done a fairly good job. I think we can capitalize and do a little better, maybe.
So, Daniel, you mentioned economics. You mentioned sustaining, that it's difficult to sustain the economy with a transient community. What are the impediments to being able to build a more stable community and therefore a more stable economy?
Wow, great question. I think right now people are using Middletown as an investment. I see these houses all over the place. Come in for the week, whether it's Airbnb, vacation rental by owner. And that's great. They pay taxes. And taxes are an important component of raising money for the town. But it goes beyond that. It goes to having these full-time residents, the residents that are spending their money in supporting people that work. We need a labor force that's able to be supported. But it's a very difficult question. How do you do that? I don't know. I don't have all the answers for that. I wish I did. Do you do it through zoning, which I think is a very appropriate way to control the growth of a city, is through zoning enforcement? Do you make some new laws, where they are taxed at a business rate, which they are, versus an owner who lives in their house and rents out a room to make extra money, for things like that.
Dan, what makes you uniquely qualified to serve on Middletown Town Council? Why should people vote for you?
Well, I think I'm the best candidate, but
well, there you go.
There we go.
I actually think there's a lot of good candidates, but I think in my case, I'm actually a very good listener. I'm very good at finding this middle ground. How do we proceed? And I look at town councils all over the state, and you see arguing and bickering, and nothing gets done. Oh hell, look at national, and this really isn't the way it should be. We should be able to sit down and have a conversation. We don't have to agree. I guarantee I will not agree with everybody, and I guarantee they will not agree with me. But I want to be able to sit down and have that conversation, and find, how do we move forward from here for the best of the community, for the best of our next generation. In 50 years or so, it's going to be my son who's living here, raising his family, I hope. So that's what I want to see. That's why I think I'm qualified. I am very balanced, hard worker, constantly doing something. I can't stay still. It's just who I am. And I can dedicate the time and the energy needed. It's a tough job, and I thank everybody that has done it. It takes a lot of time.
How does your IT experience, zoning experience, how does that play into and help the town in your candidacy?
Well, the zoning experience, I think, helps because I have a really intimate view of how zoning works and how the problem of zoning enforcement works in a bigger environment like Newport. Our bigger sister here to the south definitely has, a lot of more housing, more problems because they have that downtown area, which we don't really have in Middletown. So I do get a chance to see this firsthand. I don't think our problems are the same. I think they're different, but I think they're similar. For the IT perspective, being in higher ed IT, it's just one of those things you learn all sorts of things, how to work very long hours, keep on task, especially now with COVID, getting 2,000 plus students up online, faculty, staff. It's been amazing.
Dan, what number are you on the ballot?
Well, I'm number one, right?
Are you at the top?
I don't know. I haven't looked.
Okay.
I don't look at things like that. I'll tell people how I feel, and hopefully they just don't go right down and check from 1 to 7 or something like that. I hope they put some time into it. It's really the citizens' duty to research and find out who they're voting for and why they're voting for them. Regardless of party affiliations, which thank God we don't have here in Middletown on the council, but regardless of what it is.
Dan, go ahead, Frank.
I was just going to say I'm pleased to hear that because educated voters are really what we need more and more of in our society from every level. And it is a responsibility of the voter to go out there and learn about the candidates as well as the candidates to provide opportunities for voters to learn about them.
Yeah. And I thank you for this opportunity. And to be honest, Frank, I'll tell you, I used to be pro term limits. And then I realized there is a term limit. It's called the voter. Get up and pull that ballot if you don't like what's happening. This is how you change a society. This is how you change people. You get up and you vote for them, or you don't vote for
them. Dan, is there anything, any issues, topics, anything else you want people to know about you that we may have missed today?
I am big on the environment. I love spending time outside, whether it's walking down the greenway. I spend a lot of time walking the beaches. It's very peaceful walking the neighborhoods. It can get hairy on certain roads. I would like to see things change with that. I would like to see a walkable town. I don't know if that's possible, but I think we'd be remiss to miss this opportunity to see how do we get people out exploring and walking and riding bikes. That's another great thing to do. I try not to ride too much in Middletown because I think the roads can be dangerous at times. So things like that. I don't want to say that I am against business. I am not. I love business. We need to support the business, but we also need to zone it properly. We need to keep business where business belongs in the commercial zones, and we need to pull any type of businesses, whether that's Airbnb and things like that, out of residential zones. Residents move into areas with certain expectations. If it's a residential zone, you have expectations. I want to keep those expectations for those residents.
Frank, anything else on the top of your mind?
Well, I mean, there are lots more questions, of course, but those will be answered along the way. But I think, you hit on a number of topics. You hit on education, you hit on the environment, you hit on the schools, and economy. Those are really key issues. There are lots of things we could talk about. We could talk about affordable housing. We could talk about all that stuff, but there's clearly more time for that.
Yeah.
Dan, how can people get a hold of you, find out more about your campaign, all of that good stuff?
Well, I'll be putting up a Facebook page shortly. In the meantime, my email, danieltitus11@gmail.com. I check it often. I'll gladly respond to anybody that wants to talk and have a conversation or wants to just give me their opinion on what they think is important. I think government needs to be approachable. I don't want to go into a council where we don't listen to the voters. The voters are my boss. They're the ones who elect and they're the ones who unelect. So I want to hear from them. I want to see what issues are big in their mind.
Excellent. Well, Daniel, we wish you the very best of luck in the upcoming election, the days ahead, as well as on November 3rd. And again, he is running for Middletown Town Council, asking for your vote on November 3rd or anytime you vote, in any way you vote ahead of time. And Daniel, very best of luck.
Thank you very much. Vote
Daniel.
All righty. All right, Mr. Prosnitz. And great conversation with Daniel there. And you can find out, rewatch this video, share this video, all of that good stuff. And we have chatted with a bunch of Middletown Town Council candidates, and we got a couple more coming up, as well as Newport School Committee candidates. In the coming days, we'll be talking with Chris Logan, who's running for Middletown Town Council, Ray Gomes, the chair of the Newport School Committee, who is seeking re-election. We'll chat with Louisa Boatwright and the other 157 candidates running for Middletown Town Council.
Which I think is a good number.
It's 18, but when you're trying to schedule these things around everybody else's time, it's a handful.
It is indeed, but it's a great service, and it's really good to meet these candidates up front and see who they are, learn about them, and then I can say that Daniel's to me, the thing that he said that's most important is for people to get out there and educate themselves about the candidates, and then make an educated, good decision based upon what your beliefs are. Everybody has different beliefs, but if I find a candidate that's much more aligned with what I believe in, then I need to support them.
That's it. And we have interviewed, I think, around 40 candidates was my count this morning. And every single one of them, no matter where they land on the political spectrum, have had something interesting, something that would better the community that they live in and that they want to serve. And reminder, these are all people stepping up voluntary to go through this process.
And they don't get rich.
They do not get rich. And lots of great candidates. And hey, be informed. We are bringing you the information. This is somehow we landed in this spectrum where we are bringing more candidates closer to you for longer than anyone else out there. So, we just spent 15, 20 minutes with Daniel. That might, because of COVID, that might be the only chance you get to hear from these candidates because they can't go door to door. So sometimes you have to seek out the information, and during COVID, that's the time to do it.
Absolutely.
All right, Mr. Prosnitz, until tomorrow.
Indeed.
All right, my
Take
friend.
care.
I'll talk to you soon. On behalf of Frank Prosnitz, as well as myself, I want to thank Daniel Titus, Middletown Town Council candidate, for joining us today. You can find out more about his campaign, as well as watch and share this video right on whatsupnewp.com now. Thanks for watching.